Back in the garage today, back in the garage today. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Two Wheeled Rider YouTube channel. My name is Mario Orsini. I don't know if we're calling this a back in the garage video or not, but we are going to show you how to work on your bike. As you saw the title, this is how to fix your fork seals. Couple of things. One, I'm getting ready on this bike. We just got back from an epic trip up to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. So this is a real world situation I'm about ready to show you. I am going to rebuild these forks, but these forks also have a pretty significant amount of mileage on them. So I want new oil, I want new seals, I want new bushings. What happens on a lot of motorcycle trips, and those of you that have been on the Wild and Wonderfuls and the ADV rides have seen me do this. It's a pretty simple technique. It doesn't take a whole lot of stuff. What happens on some of these trips is people think their fork seals blow out. 9 times out of 10 they don't. You're riding in dirty situations, where there's a lot of dirt, there's a lot of mud, or there might not be a whole lot and you just happen to get some in there, and what ends up happening is your fork seals aren't blown. Dirt gets in between the fork tube and the seal. And when that happens, it creates a little air gap, or a little bit of space, however you want to look at it, which then allows fork oil to seep out, gets down on your brake disc, gets down on your brake pads. It's not a good situation. It's something you want to fix. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. In some cases, this is a permanent fix, and there's actually a 2-step process I'm going to show you. You might only need the first step. You might need the second step. I used both steps most recently. We've done this on the dirt bikes. I've done it on other folks' bikes, like I said, that have been on rides with us in the past. And I'm going to show you how to do it right now. You can do it alongside the trail if you're out trail riding or adventure riding, or you can do it alongside the road at a rest stop or whatever if you're out on some sort of like street tour, where hey, you want to get home and you don't have time to pull over to a motorcycle shop and hope they can get you in and rebuild your fork. So I'm going to show you, you only need a couple of simple items, things you can carry on the bike, really don't take up any space at all. I'll show you some alternatives if you don't have those items. So let's hop into it. Okay, so we're down here on the front end of the bike. You can see where I've been keeping the fork tube kind of clean up here. There's a reason for that. But anyway, this first step's kind of optional. I ended up doing this when we were in Coldfoot. We made it to Dead Horse. I'm gonna guess, or I'm gonna hope anyway, that the fork seals just have dirt in them. So I'm gonna clean them up, but man, there's both sides. Let's see what we can do. When my fork seals were leaking, it just makes life a little bit easier. I'll leave it up to you. Mine has a fender with an integrated fork protector. The 890, depending on the setup, we just have fork protectors. For the purposes of the video, I'm gonna remove this because it's gonna make what I'm about to do much easier to see. Also in real life, if you have the time, and in this case, it's just 6 T30 bolts on here. It only takes a minute or two to remove. It will make your life easier trying to clean these things. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take this off. And like I said, it's gonna make it a little bit easier to see on camera, and it's gonna make life a little bit easier for me too, working on this thing. Alright, so with the front fender removed, we can see, looks like this one's still leaking a little bit. Again, in my case, it really doesn't matter because I'm going to rebuild them anyway, but I want to show you guys how to do this. So, whether or not you remove the front fender, if you don't do that, this will be step 1, otherwise it's step 2. We want to clean up the fork. Now, in my case, I had some, waterless car wash stuff. Later on in the trip, I had some brake clean. I actually prefer brake clean. So we're going to take some brake clean and some paper towels. And if you're alongside the trail and you carry a rag, rag's fine. And we just want to clean this up first, and then we'll get to the seal itself. All right, now the reason why we want to clean up the fork tube itself is because if we clean up the fork seal and we leave all the dirt on here, we just take the chance of dirt getting back up between the fork seal again, negating the work we put in. So next up, we're going to grab, I carry a toolkit on the bike, but we're going to grab a flat blade screwdriver, and we want to get the dust seal pried down off of here so we can get access to the fork seal. You just want to be careful when you're prying this down, and you're going to pull the dust cover down out of the way. The next step, I guess you could call this a specialty tool. It's called a Seal Mate. I'll link it down below. You can get them off Amazon, or a couple of them is like 14 bucks or whatever. This one here is definitely showing some wear and tear, so I ordered some new ones. Also, if you start to get frayed edges, don't be afraid to pull out some scissors and trim it back up. You can reuse this thing a ton of times. You can also, if you're wearing goggles, you could run you could use a tear off. I've even bought like packages like JB Weld and stuff like that and just stolen the plastic off of it. Whatever you have available, it just needs to be a thin piece of plastic. What we're going to do with it is we're going to slide it up between the fork tube and the seal in an attempt to get dirt out. Now, if it's done properly, you're going to see some oil spill out. Don't worry about it. So we're just going to insert this up in here. You're going to see oil coming around or coming down out of there. We're going to run it around and we're going to take a look at it. Usually you're going to see a little bit of dirt on there. We do have a little. You might have to do it a couple of times until you feel it, it's nice and smooth. We want to wipe the tube back down. Now in this case, depending on what kind of cleaner you have, what type of rags you have, you want to clean up in here as best you can. You want to clean the dust seal up, and obviously you want to clean the fork tube back up, and then you're going to pop your dust seal back up in place. And that's going to work most of the time. But if you do this and you get a few miles down the road, or what I would suggest doing is once you get it back on here, compress the fork a few times, and if you see there's still oil leaking out, you're not done yet. And that's when you're going to move on to step 2, which does require something additional, which I didn't have in Coldfoot, but when I got back to Fairbanks, I went and picked some up at Walmart, so let me show you what you need for that. So in this case, this is Maxima waterproof grease. This is what I use here at the shop. This was not available at Walmart, nor did I have it on the bike, so we just picked up some generic grease. Just try to get yourself a good waterproof grease. That's really all you need. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take some of it, and again, this is once you've tested it and you're like, yeah, the things are still leaking on me. Clean them out again, and then you're going to take grease and you're going to pack grease all the way around the seal. We've done this on dirt bikes. I mean, we did it on the 890. That thing held the entire way from Fairbanks back to Montana, still not leaking. This bike was actually doing great until I compressed the forks down in the trailer, and I think I got it down into some of the dirt. Otherwise, it held the entire way. And I don't care how much you put in there, just make sure it is packed in. I mean, when I say I don't care how much, you can't really overdo it because we're going to squeeze out the excess here in a minute anyway. But for the purposes of today, we're going to call that good. And then what we're going to do is run our dust cover back up. Now, it's not going to go on super easy because you've got that grease in there, but just work it back into place, squeezing out the excess grease. Out there, and then with your rag, grease is kind of like a double-edged sword. It helps seal stuff out, but if you get too much of it on there, it can attract dirt, which is also not good. So just make sure your dust cover's back on there. Make sure everything's cleaned up around here. Once again, compress the fork a few times. I think you'll find when you get, I mean, if this thing's still leaking at this point, it's time for new fork seals, and you're going to need them sooner rather than later. But again, we rode thousands of miles with this type of repair with no issue. So that's pretty much it. You need a little bit of cleaner spray or at least a wet rag to clean this up. Try not to scratch it. A seal mate's great. Otherwise, any sort of piece of thin plastic, and then maybe some grease for we'll call it a semi-permanent fix. That's it. All right, guys. So like I said, that's it. That's how you will, I say repair, but really clean your fork seals on a long trip or trail ride or whatever, so you don't ruin the ride. You can actually get home. You also don't screw up your forks. So anyway, fairly simple, really straightforward. Doesn't take that much tools. It's going to take you a few minutes to get it done right, but yeah, it's going to save your trip. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider hitting that subscribe button, because if you like motorcycles, well, this is the place to be. Once again, I did link the SealMate down in the description below, but if you have any additional questions, please let me know in the comments section below. I will do my best to answer them. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.